The millionaire hotel owner had built walls around his heart for 10 long years, until one desperate mother crashed through his door and shattered everything he thought he knew about love. Marcus Hale hadn't touched a woman since the day his fiancée's betrayal nearly destroyed him. But when Ariana Brooks stumbled into his life with her 6-year-old son and fierce independence, something inside him began to crack. What started as innocent morning conversations over coffee would become a dangerous game of trust and deception, because Ariana had no idea she was falling for the man who secretly owned the very hotel where she worked. But when the truth finally comes out, the revelation will test everything they've built together, and Marcus will have to choose between the safety of his carefully controlled world and the terrifying vulnerability of real love. Will a decade of isolation prove too much to overcome, or can two broken hearts find the courage to heal together? If you're watching this story unfold, subscribe and tell me what city you're watching from. I love hearing where my viewers are tuning in. Claude é uma IA e pode cometer erros. Por favor, verifique as respostas. The late afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of the Seaside Manor Hotel, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Ariana Brooks wiped her hands on her white apron and glanced at the clock above the kitchen door. 5:30. Her shift was almost over. "Mom, can I have some crackers?" 6-year-old Noah looked up at her with those big brown eyes that melted her heart every single time. He sat at the small table in the staff lounge, coloring in a book she'd brought from home. "Just a few, baby. We'll have dinner when we get home." Ariana pulled a small sleeve of saltines from her purse. She always kept snacks for Noah during the long afternoons when he had to wait for her to finish work. The hotel's catering kitchen buzzed with quiet activity around them. Most of the evening staff hadn't arrived yet, and the dinner crowd wouldn't start for another hour. It was Ariana's favorite time of day, peaceful and calm. "Mrs. Rodriguez said I could help her fold napkins tomorrow," Noah said, his crayon moving carefully inside the lines of a cartoon elephant. "That's nice of her." Ariana smiled. The head housekeeper had a soft spot for Noah. Most of the staff did. He was a quiet, sweet boy who never caused trouble. "But remember, you can't wander around the hotel by yourself. Stay in the staff areas." "I know, Mom." Noah's voice held that patient tone kids used when they thought adults worried too much. Ariana finished cleaning the last of the serving trays and hung up her apron. The wedding reception they'd catered that afternoon had gone smoothly. Chicken and fish, roasted vegetables, dinner rolls that had come out perfect. Simple food done well. That's what the Seaside Manor was known for. "Okay, buddy, time to pack up." She gathered Noah's crayons and closed his coloring book. "Go use the bathroom before we leave." Noah slid off his chair and headed toward the staff restroom down the hall. Ariana tucked his coloring supplies into her purse and checked her phone. No messages. Good. Sometimes the single mom group chat got overwhelming, especially on Friday evenings when everyone was making weekend plans she couldn't afford. She waited. 2 minutes, 3, 5. "Noah!" She called toward the hallway. No answer. Her chest tightened. "Noah!" Ariana hurried down the hallway, checking the bathroom first. Empty. Her heart started beating faster. The staff break room. Empty. The small office where Mrs. Rodriguez sometimes did paperwork. Empty. "Noah Brooks!" Her voice echoed off the walls, sharper now. Where could he have gone? The staff areas were clearly marked, separated from the guest sections by keycard doors. But Noah was curious, and sometimes doors didn't latch properly. Ariana pushed through the door marked "Staff Only" and found herself in the main hotel corridor. The carpet here was thick and burgundy, with gold patterns that probably cost more than she made in a month. Crystal light fixtures hung from the ceiling. This was definitely guest territory. "Noah!" She tried to keep her voice down but couldn't hide the panic. A woman in an expensive-looking dress glanced at her with raised eyebrows. Ariana realized she still wore her catering uniform, black pants and a white shirt that marked her clearly as staff. She didn't belong in this part of the hotel, but her son was missing. She hurried down the corridor, checking around corners, her heart pounding harder with each empty hallway. The Seaside Manor was huge. 5 floors, over 200 rooms. Noah could be anywhere. "Have you seen a little boy?" she asked a man carrying a leather briefcase. 6 years old? Brown hair?" He shook his head and kept walking. Ariana turned another corner and saw a flash of movement near the end of the hall, a small figure in a red t-shirt. Noah! Relief flooded through her as she broke into a run. But Noah wasn't just standing there. He was reaching for something, a door handle. The door to room 412 was slightly open, and her son was trying to peek inside. Noah, no! Ariana sprinted toward him, her work shoes slipping on the thick carpet. She reached for Noah's arm just as the door swung open wider. Her momentum carried her forward. She couldn't stop. Her shoulder hit the doorframe hard, and she stumbled into the room, pulling Noah with her. Time seemed to slow down. She saw a man sitting in a chair by the window, tall, white, dark hair. He was holding a book, but now he was staring at her with the most intense gray eyes she'd ever seen. Ariana's face burned with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My son, he wandered off, and I was looking for him, and the door was open, and I didn't mean to." "Mom?" Noah's voice was small. The man hadn't moved. He sat, perfectly still, the book forgotten in his lap. He wore dark jeans and a simple gray sweater. Nothing fancy, but everything about him looked expensive, clean, put together. "I'm sorry," Ariana said again, pulling Noah closer to her. "We'll go, right now. I'm so sorry we bothered you." The man set his book on the side table and stood up slowly. He was taller than she'd expected, at least 6 feet, but something in his movement was careful, controlled. "You're not bothering me." His voice was quiet, calm. "Is everything all right?" Ariana blinked. She'd been prepared for anger, for demands to speak to her manager, for the kind of entitled rage she'd seen from hotel guests who felt their space had been invaded. Instead, this man seemed concerned. "My son got lost," she managed. "I was looking for him. The door was open, and I didn't realize it was a guest room until the door shouldn't have been open." The man looked past her into the hallway. "The housekeeping staff finished this floor hours ago." "I'm sorry," Ariana said for the 4th time. "We'll leave you alone." "Wait." The man held up one hand, not in a commanding way, more like a gentle request. "Are you hurt? You hit the doorframe pretty hard." Ariana touched her shoulder. It was sore, but nothing serious. "I'm fine." The man's eyes moved to Noah, who was pressed against Ariana's side, looking up at the stranger with curiosity instead of fear. Kids always surprised her. They could sense things adults missed. "Hello," the man said, crouching down so he was at Noah's eye level. His voice got even softer. "I'm Marcus. What's your name?" "Noah Brooks," her son answered politely. "I'm sorry I tried to look in your room. I heard music and I wanted to see where it came from." Marcus glanced toward a small speaker on the dresser. Classical music played so quietly, Ariana had to strain to hear it. "You like music?" "Mom says I have good ears." Noah smiled, that shy smile that made Ariana's heart melt. "Sometimes I can hear things other people can't. That's a special gift." Marcus stood up again, but he kept his attention on Noah. "Your mom must be proud." "I am," Ariana said automatically. Then she realized how strange this whole situation was. She was standing in a guest's hotel room, having a normal conversation with a man she'd never met, while wearing her work uniform and trying not to think about how much trouble she might be in if someone reported this. "I should take you back to the staff areas," she told Noah. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name." "Hale," Marcus said. "Marcus Hale. And you don't need to apologize anymore. Accidents happen." Something in the way he said it made Ariana look at him more carefully. His face was handsome in a quiet way. Strong jaw, kind eyes, but there was something else there. A distance, like he was watching the world from behind glass. "I'm Ariana Brooks." She felt like she should introduce herself properly, even though they'd probably never see each other again. "I work in catering here." "I know." Marcus's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "I saw you setting up for the wedding reception earlier. You were very focused." "You were watching me work?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "Not watching," Marcus said quickly. "I was walking past the ballroom, and I noticed how carefully you arranged everything. It looked perfect." Heat crept up Ariana's neck. She didn't know what to do with compliments from strangers, especially not from men who looked like they belonged in magazine ads. "Thank you," she said simply. An awkward silence settled between them. Noah had wandered over to the window and was looking out at the ocean. The late afternoon light turned the water gold and orange. "We really should go," Ariana said. "Of course." Marcus moved toward the door, then stopped. "Can I ask you something?" Ariana tensed. Here it comes, she thought. The question about whether she has a husband, whether she's single, whether she wants to have drinks later. "How long have you worked here?" Marcus asked. That wasn't what she'd expected. "Almost 2 years. Do you like it?" "I like it fine." Ariana studied his face, trying to figure out what he was really asking. "The people are nice. The pay is decent. Why?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I haven't seen you before today. I thought maybe you were new. Maybe you just haven't been paying attention." The words slipped out before Ariana could stop them. She immediately regretted them. Rule number 1 of working in hospitality: don't be sarcastic with the guests. But Marcus didn't look offended. If anything, he looked almost relieved. "You're probably right," he said. "I don't pay attention to much lately." There was something sad in the way he said it, something that made Ariana want to ask more questions, but Noah tugged on her shirt. "Mom, I'm hungry." "I know, baby, we're going home now." Ariana took Noah's hand and turned toward the door. "Thank you for being so understanding, Mr. Hale." "Marcus," he corrected. "Marcus." His name felt strange on her tongue, formal but warm at the same time. Ariana was almost to the door when Marcus spoke again. "I haven't touched a woman in 10 years. She stopped walking, turned around, stared at him. "What?" Marcus looked as surprised by his words as she felt. His face went pale, and he ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I don't know why I said that. That was completely inappropriate." But Ariana wasn't offended. She was confused and curious. "Why are you telling me this?" "I don't know." Marcus sat down heavily in the chair by the window. "I really don't know." Noah tugged on her hand again, but Ariana stayed put. Something in Marcus's voice made her want to listen. 10 years is a long time," she said carefully. "Yes, it is." "That was a choice you made?" Marcus looked up at her. "It was a choice I made after someone else made a choice for me." Ariana felt a familiar twist in her stomach, the feeling she got whenever someone mentioned being hurt by someone they'd trusted. She knew that feeling too well. "I'm sorry," she said, and she meant it. "Don't be sorry," Marcus shook his head. "It was the right choice. It kept me safe." "Safe from what?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus studied her face like he was trying to decide whether to answer. "Safe from feeling like this," he said finally. "Like what?" "Like I want to talk to someone, like I want to know about someone's life, like I want to see someone again." Ariana's breath caught in her throat. She glanced down at Noah, who was listening with the intense focus kids brought to conversations they didn't completely understand. "Mr. Hale," she started. "Marcus." "Marcus, I think maybe you should talk to someone, a professional someone." "I've done that." Marcus stood up again. "For years, they all say the same thing, that isolation isn't healthy, that I need to take risks, that I need to trust again. Maybe they're right. Maybe." Marcus walked over to the window where Noah had been standing. "But maybe safe is better than sorry." Ariana watched him stare out at the ocean. His shoulders were tense, like he was carrying something heavy. She recognized the posture. She saw it in her bathroom mirror every morning. "Safe is lonely," she heard herself say. Marcus turned around. "You sound like you know something about that." "I know something about making choices because you're scared. I know something about building walls." Ariana shifted Noah's hand to her other one. "I also know something about wondering if those walls are keeping good things out instead of keeping bad things from getting in." They looked at each other for a long moment. Ariana felt something pass between them. Recognition, maybe. Or understanding. "Mom," Noah said in a stage whisper that filled the whole room, "are we going to have dinner soon? My tummy is making noises." The spell broke. Ariana laughed, and some of the tension left her shoulders. "Yes, baby. We're going right now." She looked back at Marcus. "Thank you for... I don't know what to thank you for exactly. But thank you." "Thank you for listening," Marcus said. "I haven't talked to anyone like that in a very long time. Maybe you should do it more often. Maybe I will." Ariana opened the door and stepped into the hallway with Noah. She was about to say goodbye when Marcus spoke again. "Ariana?" She turned back. Would it be all right if I said hello sometime, if I saw you around the hotel? The question was so careful, so polite, like he was afraid she might say no. I work most afternoons, Ariana said, in the catering kitchen or setting up events. I'll remember that. Ariana nodded and walked away, Noah's hand warm in hers. She could feel Marcus watching them go, but she didn't look back. Her heart was beating fast and she wasn't sure why. 10 years without touching a woman. What kind of hurt made someone build walls that high, and why did she suddenly want to know the answer? Marcus stood at his window long after Ariana and Noah disappeared down the hallway. The ocean stretched out before him, endless and gray in the fading light. He'd been staring at that same view for 3 days, but tonight it looked different somehow, less empty. He picked up his phone and scrolled to Thomas's number. His assistant answered on the second ring. Marcus, everything okay? I need to extend my stay. There was a pause. How long? I'm not sure yet. A week, maybe longer. Is there a problem with the hotel? I can book you somewhere else if... No. Marcus sat down in the chair by the window. The hotel's fine. I need more time. More time for what? Thomas's voice was careful. He'd worked for Marcus for 6 years. He knew when not to push. I'll let you know. Marcus ended the call and set the phone aside. He hadn't planned to stay in this small coastal town for more than a few days. The seaside manor was one of several properties he'd been considering for purchase, and he'd wanted to see it in person before making an offer. Stay anonymous, observe the operation, make his decision. That was before Ariana Brooks crashed into his room with her wide brown eyes and her fierce love for her son. That was before he'd opened his mouth and said things he'd never said to anyone. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. 10 years of careful control and one conversation with a woman he'd never met before had cracked something open inside him. The next morning, Marcus woke earlier than usual. By 7:30, he was dressed and walking through the hotel's main lobby. The breakfast service was just getting started. A few early guests sat at scattered tables, reading newspapers and checking their phones. Ariana wasn't there. Marcus ordered coffee from a teenage server who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. He sat at a corner table with a clear view of the kitchen entrance and tried to look like he belonged there. At 8:15, Ariana walked through the kitchen doors wearing the same black pants and white shirt as yesterday. But today she'd pulled her curly hair back in a neat bun, and she moved with the quick efficiency of someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. Marcus watched her check the coffee station, refill the cream dispensers, and straighten the pastry display. She worked like someone who took pride in doing things right, even when no one was watching. When she finally noticed him, she stopped moving for just a second. Then she walked over to his table. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was polite but cautious. "Good morning." Marcus gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Would you like to sit down?" Ariana glanced toward the kitchen, then back at him. "I'm working." "I know. I was hoping maybe you could take a break, just for a few minutes." "Why?" The question was direct. No games, no flirting. Marcus liked that about her. "Because I'd like to apologize for yesterday. What I said about not touching women, that was way too personal. You don't know me, and I shouldn't have shared something like that." Ariana studied his face. "Are you sorry you said it, or are you sorry I heard it?" "I don't know." The honest answer surprised them both. "Maybe I'm sorry it's true." Ariana pulled out the chair and sat down. "I have 5 minutes before I need to help set up for the business meeting in conference room B." "Thank you." Marcus felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. "Can I buy you coffee?" "I can get my own coffee." Ariana's tone was matter-of-fact, not defensive. "I work here, remember?" "Right." Marcus smiled slightly. "Can I buy you coffee anyway?" "Why?" "Because I want to do something nice for you, and coffee is all I can think of." Ariana was quiet for a moment. "Okay. Black coffee, no sugar." Marcus signaled the teenage server, who brought Ariana a cup with obvious reluctance. When she was gone, Ariana wrapped her hands around the mug and looked at Marcus expectantly. "So," she said, 10 years? 10 years. That's a long time to be alone." Marcus nodded. It is. Do you want to talk about why? Not particularly. Marcus drank his coffee and tried to figure out how to explain something he'd never put into words before. It's not an interesting story. Someone I trusted decided I wasn't worth being honest with. I decided trusting people wasn't worth the risk. Someone you loved? Someone I was going to marry. Ariana's expression softened. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Pain doesn't care how long ago it was. Marcus looked at her more carefully. You sound like you know something about that too. I know something about people who aren't worth trusting. Ariana's voice stayed level, but Marcus caught a flash of something sharp in her eyes. I know something about making promises to yourself, about never being that stupid again. What happened? Noah's father happened. Ariana took a sip of coffee. He promised me a lot of things, a future, a family, a partnership. Turned out he was promising the same things to 2 other women at the same time. Jesus! Found out when Noah was 6 months old. Found out because one of the other women showed up at my apartment. Ariana's jaw tightened. She was pregnant too. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. What did you do? What do you think I did? I packed up my baby and left. Haven't seen him since. Does he pay support? He sends money sometimes when he remembers, when he feels guilty. Ariana shrugged. I don't count on it. That's not right. A lot of things aren't right. Doesn't mean you get to stop living because of them. Marcus stared at her. Is that what you think I'm doing? Not living? I think you're surviving. There's a difference. The words hit him like cold water. What's the difference? Surviving is about protecting yourself. Living is about connecting with other people, even when it's scary. Ariana checked her phone. Even when you might get hurt again. And which one are you doing? Ariana was quiet for a long moment. Probably a little of both. But I have Noah to think about. I can't just hide away and feel sorry for myself. He needs me to be present. He needs me to be strong. You are strong. Some days. Ariana stood up. Thank you for the coffee. I really do need to get back to work. Ariana. She paused. Would it be okay if we did this again? Talked, I mean, not about heavy things necessarily, just talked. Ariana looked at him for a long moment. Marcus held his breath. I don't date, she said finally. I don't either. I mean it. I don't have time for relationships or drama or men who want things I can't give them. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm asking for conversation. What's the difference? Conversation has no expectations. Conversation is just 2 people sharing coffee and being honest with each other. Ariana smiled slightly. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is simple. Maybe we just make it complicated. Maybe. Ariana picked up her empty coffee cup. I work most afternoons. The breakfast shift ends at 11, and then I usually help with lunch prep. I'll remember that. After Ariana disappeared into the kitchen, Marcus sat alone at his table and tried to understand what had just happened. He'd had more honest conversation in 2 days with a woman he barely knew than he'd had with anyone in the past decade. That afternoon, Marcus found himself in the hotel lobby again. This time he brought a book and claimed a comfortable chair with a view of both the front desk and the restaurant entrance. He wasn't waiting for anyone in particular. He was just reading. At 2:30, Noah Brooks ran through the lobby doors, his backpack bouncing against his small shoulders. A woman Marcus didn't recognize followed him, an older Latina woman in a hotel uniform. Slow down, mijo, the woman called. Your mama's not going anywhere. Noah stopped at the reception desk and waited patiently while the woman spoke to the clerk. Marcus watched the boy look around the lobby with curious eyes, taking in the crystal chandelier, the fresh flowers, the oil paintings of sailing ships. When Noah's gaze landed on Marcus, his face lit up with recognition. Mr. Marcus! Noah waved enthusiastically. The woman turned to see who Noah was greeting. Her expression grew protective as she took in Marcus's expensive clothes and the fact that he was a strange white man her charge seemed to know. Marcus closed his book and walked over to them. Hello, Noah. He knelt down so they were at the same eye level again. How was school? Good. We learned about ocean animals. Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? I did not know that. That's very cool. The woman cleared her throat. Noah, who is this? This is Mr. Marcus. He's nice. He lives in room 412. Noah looked up at the woman. Mrs. Rodriguez, this is my new friend. Mrs. Rodriguez's expression didn't soften. Nice to meet you, sir. Come on, Noah. Your mama's waiting. Actually, Marcus said, standing up slowly, I was hoping to say hello to Mrs. Brooks. Is she working this afternoon? She's in the catering kitchen, Mrs. Rodriguez said carefully, but she's very busy. I understand. I don't want to interrupt her work. Noah tugged on Mrs. Rodriguez's sleeve. Can Mr. Marcus come with us? Mom said he was nice yesterday. Mrs. Rodriguez looked Marcus up and down. You met Noah's mother? Yesterday. There was a small mix-up with room doors, and we ended up talking for a few minutes. She seemed like a lovely person. Something in Marcus's tone must have satisfied Mrs. Rodriguez, because her stance relaxed slightly. The staff areas are for staff only, she said. Of course. I was just hoping to say hello if Mrs. Brooks had a moment. Mrs. Rodriguez considered this. I'll tell her you're here. Wait in the lobby. She disappeared through the staff doors with Noah, leaving Marcus alone. He went back to his chair and tried to read, but the words swam on the page. His heart was beating faster than it should have been. This was ridiculous. He was acting like a teenager with a crush. 5 minutes later, Ariana emerged from the staff area. She'd changed out of her catering uniform and wore jeans and a simple blue sweater. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she looked younger somehow, less guarded. Hi, she said, sitting down in the chair next to his. Hi, I hope I'm not bothering you. You're not bothering me. Mrs. Rodriguez said you wanted to say hello. I did. I was reading and Noah came through, and I realized I was hoping I might see you. Ariana smiled. Hoping? Hoping. That's honest. I'm trying to be more honest lately. Someone told me it was better than hiding. Someone sounds very wise. Someone is very wise, also very beautiful. The compliment slipped out before Marcus could stop it. Ariana's cheeks flushed and she looked away. You don't need to say things like that. What if I want to say things like that? Then I'd say you should be careful, because I don't know what to do with compliments from men who look like you. Men who look like me. Rich men. White men. Men who probably have their pick of women and don't need to be talking to single mothers who work in hotel kitchens. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Is that what you think this is about? I don't know what this is about. That's the problem. They sat in silence for a moment. Marcus tried to figure out how to explain something he didn't understand himself. I don't have my pick of women, he said finally. I don't have any women. I don't have friends, really. I don't have family I'm close to. I have work and money and a very quiet, very empty life. Ariana looked at him. That sounds lonely. It is lonely, but it's safe. And I've been safe for so long that I forgot what it felt like to want something else. What changed? You crashed into my room. That's not an answer. Marcus thought about it. You looked at me like I was a person instead of a problem to be solved. You listened when I said something crazy instead of backing away. You told me the truth about your own life instead of trying to impress me. Those are pretty low standards. Those are the highest standards I've had in years. Ariana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. What do you want, Marcus? I want to keep talking to you. I want to get to know you and Noah better. I want to figure out if this feeling I have is real or just desperation dressed up as attraction. What feeling? Like I've been holding my breath for 10 years and suddenly I can breathe again. Ariana's eyes widened. That's a pretty big thing to put on someone you just met. I know. I'm sorry. I told you I was out of practice with people. You're definitely out of practice, but Ariana was almost smiling. Lucky for you, I like honest better than smooth. So we can keep talking? We can keep talking, but slowly, okay? I meant what I said about not dating. I have Noah to think about, and I can't afford to make mistakes. No mistakes, Marcus agreed. Just conversation. Just conversation. But as Marcus watched Ariana walk back toward the staff areas, he knew it was already more than just conversation. At least for him. The question was what he was going to do about it. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Ariana fell into a rhythm that felt both natural and strange. Every morning, Marcus would appear in the lobby cafe around 8:30 with a book and a cup of coffee. Ariana would take her break at 9 and sit with him for 15 minutes before the lunch prep started. They talked about small things, safe things. Ariana told him about Noah's fascination with ocean creatures and his habit of collecting smooth stones from the beach. Marcus shared stories about traveling for business and the weird foods he'd tried in different cities. Neither of them mentioned the past. Neither of them talked about the future. It was exactly what Marcus had promised. Just conversation. So why did he find himself looking forward to those 15 minutes more than anything else in his carefully ordered life? "Mom, can we go to the tide pools this weekend?" Noah asked one Thursday afternoon. He was sitting at the small table in the staff lounge, working on homework while Ariana finished cleaning up from a corporate luncheon. "We'll see, baby. I might have to work Saturday." Ariana wiped down the last serving tray and hung up her apron. The hotel was hosting a weekend wedding, which meant extra catering shifts and overtime pay she couldn't afford to turn down. "But we haven't been to the tide pools in forever," Noah said, not whining exactly, but with the particular tone 6-year-olds used when they wanted something very much. "I know, I'm sorry. Maybe next weekend." Noah went back to his math worksheet, but his shoulders drooped in a way that made Ariana's chest tight. She hated disappointing him, hated that work always seemed to come before the fun things they could be doing together. "Excuse me." Ariana turned around. Marcus stood in the doorway of the staff lounge, looking uncertain. "I'm sorry to interrupt. Mrs. Rodriguez said I could find you here." "It's okay." Ariana glanced around the small room with its mismatched chairs and ancient coffee maker. "Though this isn't exactly the lobby cafe." "I brought something." Marcus held up a paper bag. "For Noah, actually, if that's all right with you." Noah looked up from his homework with interest. "What is it?" Marcus looked at Ariana. "May I?" She nodded, curious despite herself. Marcus sat down at Noah's table and pulled a book from the bag. "It's about ocean animals. I thought you might like it." Noah's eyes went wide. The book was gorgeous. Hardcover with a photo of a bright orange octopus on the front, the kind of book that cost more than Ariana spent on groceries in a week. "This is for me," Noah whispered, "if your mom says it's okay." "Mom, can I have it?" Noah bounced slightly in his chair. "Please." Ariana looked at the book, then at Marcus. "This is too expensive. We can't accept." "It's not expensive," Marcus interrupted gently. "I found it at the bookstore in town. It was on the clearance table." Ariana knew he was lying. She'd seen that same book in the hotel gift shop with a $40 price tag. But Marcus said it so naturally, and Noah was looking at her with such hope that she didn't have the heart to argue. "What do you say, Noah?" "Thank you, Mr. Marcus." Noah hugged the book to his chest. "This is the best present ever." Marcus smiled, a real smile that changed his whole face. "You're very welcome." "Will you look at it with me?" Noah asked. "If your mom doesn't mind." Ariana sat down at the table as Noah opened the book carefully. The pages were full of stunning underwater photographs and simple text that was perfect for Noah's reading level. "Look, Mom, it says here that some fish can change colors to hide from predators." Noah pointed to a picture of what looked like a piece of coral that was actually a fish. "That's amazing," Ariana said. And it was. But she was more amazed by the way Marcus listened to Noah's excited chatter with complete attention. No checking his phone, no glancing at his watch, no polite but distant adult responses. "Mr. Marcus, do you like tide pools?" Noah asked, turning a page to reveal photos of sea anemones and hermit crabs. "I've never been to any," Marcus admitted. Noah looked shocked. "Never? But you live by the ocean." "I don't really live here, I'm just visiting." "Where do you live?" Noah asked. Marcus hesitated. "Different places. I travel a lot for work." "That sounds lonely," Noah said with the matter-of-fact empathy that children sometimes showed. "Sometimes it is," Marcus said quietly. "You could come with us to the tide pools," Noah announced. "Mom says we might go this weekend. You could see the real animals instead of just pictures." "Noah," Ariana said quickly, "Mr. Marcus probably has other plans." "Actually, I don't," Marcus said, "but I wouldn't want to intrude on your family time." "It wouldn't be intruding," Noah said. "Would it, Mom?" Ariana felt trapped between her son's enthusiasm and her own confusion about what was happening between her and Marcus. These daily conversations were one thing. Spending a weekend afternoon together felt like something else entirely. The tide pools can be hard to navigate, she said carefully. Lots of slippery rocks. You need good shoes. I have good shoes, Marcus said, and you have to be patient. Noah likes to examine every single creature we find. I'm very patient. And it's not glamorous. We usually pack sandwiches and sit on the beach afterward. Very simple. Marcus looked directly at her. Simple sounds perfect. Ariana felt her resolve wavering. We'd have to see if I'm working Saturday. Mrs. Rodriguez told me the hotel is pretty flexible with scheduling, Marcus said, especially for good employees. You talked to Mrs. Rodriguez about my schedule? I may have mentioned that Noah was excited about the tide pools and disappointed he might not get to go. Ariana stared at him. You talked to my supervisor about my personal life. I didn't mean to overstep. I just thought, you thought what? That you could fix my problems with your money or your influence or whatever it is you have? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Noah looked between them with wide, worried eyes. I thought I could help, Marcus said quietly. I don't need help. I need to do my job and take care of my son and not have strangers interfering with things they don't understand. Ariana, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interfere. I know what you wanted. You wanted to play hero. Rich man swoops in to save the struggling single mom and her poor kid. Ariana stood up, her hands shaking slightly. Well, we don't need saving. We're doing just fine on our own. Mom, Noah's voice was small and confused. Ariana looked at her son and saw her own hurt reflected in his face. She was scaring him with her anger, and that made her even angrier. Pack up your homework, Noah. We're going home. But what about my book? Leave the book. But Mom, leave it, Noah. Marcus stood up slowly. The book is Noah's. No matter what happens between us, that doesn't change. Everything changes, Ariana said, gathering Noah's papers with sharp, quick movements. That's the problem with letting people get too close. Everything always changes. She took Noah's hand and headed for the door. Ariana, please, let me explain. She turned back to face Marcus. Explain what? That you're rich? That you could probably buy this whole hotel if you wanted to? That you've been lying to me since the day we met? Marcus went very still. What do you mean? I saw the plaque in the lobby, Marcus. Your name is on the wall. You don't just stay here. You own this place. The color drained from Marcus's face. How long were you planning to keep that a secret? Ariana asked. How long were you going to pretend to be just another guest while I told you about my life and my problems? It's not what you think? It's exactly what I think. You're rich, I'm not, and you thought it would be fun to play at being normal for a few weeks. Ariana's voice cracked slightly. Well, congratulations. You really had me fooled. Ariana, just don't. She pulled Noah toward the door. Come on, baby, let's go home. As they walked through the lobby, Noah twisted around to look back at Marcus, who stood frozen in the doorway of the staff lounge. Mom, why are you mad at Mr. Marcus? Noah asked when they reached the parking lot. He was just being nice. Sometimes people are nice because they want something, Noah. Sometimes nice isn't what it seems like. But he gave me a book, and he listened to me talk about fish. He didn't want anything. Ariana buckled Noah into his car seat and tried to ignore the way her hands were still shaking. People like Mr. Marcus always want something, baby. We just don't always know what it is. But as she drove away from the hotel, Ariana couldn't shake the memory of Marcus's face when she'd confronted him. He hadn't looked guilty or caught. He'd looked devastated, like someone who'd just lost something important, like someone who understood exactly how much trust could hurt when it was broken. The next morning, Ariana called in sick for the first time in 2 years. She couldn't face seeing Marcus in the lobby cafe, couldn't face the awkward conversation or the careful apology or whatever came next when rich men got tired of their games. Instead, she took Noah to the tide pools. They spent the morning exploring the rocky shore, finding hermit crabs and sea anemones and tiny fish trapped in shallow pools by the receding tide. Noah chattered excitedly about everything they discovered, but Ariana could tell he was thinking about Marcus. Mr. Marcus would like this, he said as they watched a sea star slowly move across a rock. Maybe, Ariana said. He seemed really nice, Mom, and he looked sad when we left yesterday. Sometimes people look sad when they don't get what they want. What did he want? Ariana sighed. How did you explain adult complications to a 6-year-old? How did you explain that sometimes people lied, even when they seemed genuine? That sometimes the people who hurt you most were the ones you started to trust? I don't know what he wanted, Noah. That's the problem. They had lunch on the beach, peanut butter sandwiches and apple slices from a cooler that had seen better days. It was simple and peaceful, and exactly the kind of afternoon Ariana had hoped for. So why did she keep thinking about Marcus's face when she'd accused him of playing games? Why did she keep remembering the way he'd said her name, like it was something precious? Mom? Noah was building a sandcastle with his plastic bucket and shovel. Do you think Mr. Marcus is lonely? Why do you ask that? Because he said he travels a lot and doesn't have family. And he seemed really happy when we talked to him, like he didn't get to talk to kids very much. Ariana watched her son pat sand into careful towers. Noah had always been perceptive about people's feelings. It was one of the things she loved most about him, and one of the things that worried her most. Maybe he is lonely, she said finally. That's sad. It is sad. Are you lonely, Mom? The question caught her off guard. Sometimes. But I have you, so I'm never really alone. But it's not the same, is it? Having a kid isn't the same as having a grown-up friend. Ariana stared at her son. When had he gotten so wise? No, she said quietly. It's not the same. They stayed at the beach until the afternoon clouds rolled in and the air got too cool for comfort. On the drive home, Noah fell asleep in his car seat, exhausted from the sun and sand and fresh air. Ariana drove slowly through the small coastal town, past the bookstore and the coffee shop, and the hotel where Marcus was probably wondering why she hadn't shown up for their morning conversation. She thought about what Noah had said, about Marcus being lonely, about the difference between having a child and having an adult friend. She thought about the way Marcus had listened to Noah's excited chatter about sea creatures, the way he'd crouched down to Noah's level to talk to him, the way he'd said the book was Noah's to keep, no matter what happened between the adults. Maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe Marcus wasn't playing games. Maybe he was just a lonely man who'd found something precious in their simple morning conversations and had made a clumsy attempt to extend that connection. Maybe she'd let her own fear and past hurts turn kindness into manipulation. But it was too late now. She'd made her choice, built her walls back up, protected herself and Noah from potential disappointment, even if it meant walking away from something that might have been real, even if it meant being safe instead of happy, even if it meant staying lonely rather than taking the risk of trust. Marcus didn't leave his room for 3 days. He ordered room service, ignored calls from Thomas, and sat by the window watching the ocean without really seeing it. The book Noah had been so excited about sat on the dresser where Ariana had left it, a reminder of how badly he'd miscalculated everything. She was right, of course. He had been lying by omission. He had been playing at being normal when nothing about his life was normal. He had interfered with her work schedule without asking permission. But what hurt most was the look in her eyes when she'd realized who he really was, like she'd been expecting disappointment all along and was almost relieved to finally receive it. On the 4th day, there was a knock at his door. Marcus opened it to find a woman in her late 50s with silver hair and Marcus's own gray eyes. She wore a simple navy dress and carried a small overnight bag. "Hello, nephew," Evelyn Hale said. "You look terrible." "Aunt Evelyn?" Marcus stepped aside to let her in. "What are you doing here?" "Thomas called me. He was worried when you stopped taking his calls." Evelyn set her bag down and looked around the room. "Nice place. I can see why you're considering buying it." "I'm not buying it anymore." "Why not?" Marcus closed the door and leaned against it. "It's complicated. Most worthwhile things are." Evelyn sat down in the chair by the window. "Tell me what happened." For the next hour, Marcus found himself telling his aunt everything. About meeting Ariana and Noah, about their morning conversations, about the way talking to them had made him feel more alive than he had in years, about his clumsy attempt to help with Noah's disappointment and Ariana's furious reaction when she discovered the truth. Evelyn listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or asking a clarifying question. When Marcus finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "So you've been hiding in this room for 3 days?" she said finally. "I haven't been hiding. I've been thinking." "About what?" about how I proved she was right not to trust me, about how I should have been honest from the beginning, about how 10 years of isolation probably didn't prepare me for handling a relationship with any kind of grace. Marcus, Evelyn's voice was gentle but firm. What exactly do you think you did wrong? I lied to her. I interfered with her work. I made her feel like a charity case. Did you intentionally deceive her about who you are? No, but did you interfere with her work to show off your power, or because you wanted to help her son? I wanted to help, but did you treat her like a charity case, or did you treat her like a woman you were falling in love with? Marcus stopped talking. The last words hung in the air between them. I wasn't falling in love, he said quietly. Weren't you? Marcus thought about Ariana's laugh when Noah said something particularly clever, about the way she'd listened to his stories without judgment, about how their 15 minutes of conversation had become the best part of every day. Maybe, he admitted. Then why are you sitting in this room feeling sorry? For yourself, instead of figuring out how to apologize properly? Because she made it clear she doesn't want to see me again. Because I hurt her trust, and I know how hard that is to rebuild. Because maybe she's better off without me complicating her life. Evelyn stood up and walked to the window. Marcus, can I tell you something about your mother? Marcus tensed. Evelyn rarely talked about her younger sister, who had died when Marcus was 12. She was terrified of taking risks, Evelyn continued. After your father left, she built walls so high that no one could get close enough to hurt her again. She spent the last years of her life safe and alone and miserable. That's not the same thing, isn't it? You've spent 10 years proving you're just like her, choosing safety over connection, choosing isolation over the possibility of pain. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Evelyn turned to face him. Life is about choosing what kind of person you want to be. Do you want to be someone who gives up when things get hard, or do you want to be someone who fights for what matters? And what if she doesn't want me to fight for her? Then at least you'll know you tried. At least you'll know you chose courage over comfort. That evening, Marcus finally left his room. He walked through the hotel lobby, past the cafe where he and Ariana had shared so many morning conversations, and out into the small coastal town. The bookstore was still open, warm light spilling from its windows onto the sidewalk. Marcus pushed through the door and heard the small bell announce his arrival. Can I help you? The woman behind the counter was about Evelyn's age, with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers. I'm looking for something specific, Marcus said. Books about ocean creatures, for a 6-year-old who's fascinated by tide pools and sea life. Oh, that's easy. The woman smiled and led him toward the children's section. We have several excellent choices. Is this for your son? No, Marcus said quietly. For someone else's son, someone who deserves better than I've been able to give him. The woman showed him a collection of books, and Marcus chose 3. A field guide to Pacific Coast sea creatures, a picture book about a hermit crab's adventure, and a simple cookbook with recipes that could be made with sea vegetables and fish. These are wonderful choices, the woman said as she rang them up. Any child would be lucky to receive them. Marcus hoped she was right. The next morning, Marcus was waiting in the hotel lobby when Noah burst through the front doors after school. Mrs. Rodriguez followed close behind, but today she wasn't alone. Ariana walked with them, wearing her work uniform and carrying a tired expression. When Noah spotted Marcus, his face lit up with pure joy. Mr. Marcus, you're here. Mom said you might have left town. I'm still here, Marcus said, kneeling down to Noah's level. I have something for you. He pulled out the bag of books and handed it to Noah, who opened it with eager hands. More books? Noah exclaimed. Mom, look, there's one about hermit crabs and one with pictures of real tide pools and one about cooking fish. Noah, Ariana said quietly. What do you say? Thank you, Mr. Marcus. Noah hugged the books to his chest, then looked up at Marcus with serious eyes. Are you still sad? A little, Marcus said honestly, but seeing you happy makes me feel better. Good. Noah nodded solemnly, then turned to his mother. Mom, can I show Mr. Marcus the shells we found at the beach on Saturday? Marcus looked up at Ariana for the first time since she'd walked in. Her expression was unreadable, but she wasn't walking away. Maybe another time, Noah, she said. Mr. Marcus is probably busy. Actually, Marcus said, standing up slowly, I have something for you too. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "What is it?" Ariana asked warily. "A letter, an apology, an explanation that probably won't change anything, but that I needed to write anyway." Ariana took the envelope but didn't open it. "Marcus, you don't have to read it now, you don't have to respond to it, but I needed you to know that everything I told you about myself was true. I may have left out some details, but I never lied about who I am or what I wanted. And what did you want? To know you better. To spend time with you and Noah. To figure out if this feeling I had was real or just loneliness dressed up as attraction. And what did you decide?" Marcus looked at her steadily. "It's real. At least for me." Ariana was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the hotel lobby continued its normal afternoon rhythm, guests checking in, staff moving efficiently between tasks, the quiet hum of ordinary life. "I can't do this here," she said finally. "Noah, go with Mrs. Rodriguez. I'll be there in a few minutes." "But Mom—" "Go ahead, mijo," Mrs. Rodriguez said gently. "Your mama needs a moment." "Sure." After Noah and Mrs. Rodriguez disappeared into the staff areas, Ariana looked at Marcus with tired eyes. "I read about you," she said, "after I found out who you were. Online, business articles, interviews, that kind of thing." Marcus felt his stomach drop. And I learned that you're not just rich, you're incredibly successful. You own hotels and restaurants all over the country. You're the kind of person who gets profiled in magazines and invited to charity galas. That's all true. So what I don't understand is why someone like you would want to have coffee every morning with someone like me. Someone like you? A single mother who works in a hotel kitchen and drives a 10-year-old car and shops at thrift stores. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, not at Ariana, but at a world that had taught her to measure her worth by her bank account. "You want to know why?" he asked. "Because you're the first person in years who talked to me like I was a human being instead of a business opportunity. Because you listened when I told you things I'd never said out loud before. Because you're raising an incredible kid while working 2 jobs and still managing to be kind and funny and beautiful. Marcus, because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to want something more than safety. I remember what it feels like to hope." Ariana's eyes filled with tears. "That's a lot of pressure to put on someone." "I know. I'm sorry. I'm out of practice with people, remember?" Despite her tears, Ariana almost smiled. "You really are." "Will you read the letter?" Marcus asked. "And then will you let me try to do better?" Ariana looked down at the envelope in her hands. "I'm scared, Marcus." "So am I. I can't afford to make mistakes. I have Noah to think about. I understand that, and I want what's best for Noah too, even if that means staying away from both of you." "Is that what you want? To stay away?" Marcus took a careful step closer. "No. What I want is to take you and Noah to the tide pools this weekend. What I want is to have dinner with both of you and listen to Noah tell me everything he knows about sea creatures. What I want is to figure out if we can build something real together, slowly and carefully and honestly. No more secrets? No more secrets. I'll tell you everything you want to know about my life, my money, my business. I'll be as transparent as you need me to be." Ariana wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "And no more trying to fix my problems without asking first? I'll ask first, about everything. And no treating me like I need to be rescued? I don't think you need to be rescued. I think you're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Ariana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "I'll read your letter, but I can't promise anything else right now." "That's enough," Marcus said. "That's more than enough." 3 months later, Marcus stood on the beach watching Noah chase waves while Ariana set up their picnic lunch. It was a perfect September afternoon. Warm sun, cool breeze, the kind of day that made you grateful to be alive. "Dad, come help me build a sandcastle," Noah called, his voice carrying across the beach. Marcus felt his heart skip. Noah had started calling him Dad about a month ago, tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence. They'd talked about it as a family, all 3 of them sitting around Ariana's small kitchen table, discussing what the word meant and what kind of commitment it represented. "Coming!" Marcus called back, jogging across the sand to where Noah was already piling sand with serious concentration. As they worked together, building towers and walls and a careful moat, Marcus thought about how much his life had changed. He'd moved most of his business operations to Portland, just 2 hours away, and spent weekends and holidays in the small coastal town. He'd bought a house, not the biggest or fanciest available, but one with a good school district and a backyard where Noah could play. Most surprisingly, he'd discovered that he liked the quieter pace. He liked being present for Noah's soccer games and Ariana's birthday, and the small, ordinary moments that made up a life shared with people you loved. "Marcus!" Ariana called from their picnic spot. "Food's ready." They walked back across the sand, Noah chattering about the hermit crab he'd found and whether they could bring it home in a bucket. Ariana had spread a blanket on the sand and unpacked sandwiches, fruit, and the thermos of lemonade Noah had insisted on making himself that morning. "This is perfect," Marcus said, settling down beside Ariana as Noah explored the tide pools nearby. "Just sandwiches on the beach," Ariana said, echoing the words she'd used months ago to warn him about their simple lifestyle. "The best kind of perfect," Marcus said, meaning it completely. They ate in comfortable silence, watching Noah discover a small octopus hiding under a rock. His excited shouts drew other beach visitors over to see, and soon Noah was giving an impromptu lecture about ocean creatures to a small group of fascinated children and adults. "He's going to be a marine biologist," Ariana said proudly. "Or a teacher," Marcus added. "Look how naturally he explains things. He gets that from you. The patience part, anyway." Marcus looked at her. Even after 3 months of being together, he sometimes couldn't believe this was his life, that this strong, beautiful, complicated woman had chosen to trust him with her heart and her son's future. "Ariana, I love you." She smiled and leaned against his shoulder. "I love you too." It wasn't the first time they'd said the words, but Marcus thought he might never get tired of hearing them, or saying them, or believing they could be true. As the sun began to set, painting the ocean gold and orange, they packed up their picnic and headed back toward the parking area. Noah walked between them, holding both their hands, chattering about the creatures they'd seen and the sand castle they'd built and whether they could come back next weekend. "Of course we can come back," Ariana said. "We can come back whenever you want." "Good," Noah said seriously, "because I want to show Dad the really big tide pool on the other side of the rocks, the one with the sea anemones that look like flowers." "I'd like that very much," Marcus said, and he would. He'd like all of it, the tide pools and the sand castles and the simple picnics on the beach. He'd like the ordinary Tuesday evenings and the sleepy Sunday mornings and all the small moments that added up to a life worth living. For 10 years, Marcus had chosen safety over connection, isolation over risk. He'd built walls so high that nothing could hurt him, but nothing good could reach him either. Now, walking across the sand with Ariana's hand warm in his and Noah's excited voice filling the air, Marcus understood what his Aunt Evelyn had tried to tell him. Safety wasn't living. Safety was just surviving. But this was life. Messy and uncertain and more beautiful than he'd ever dared to hope. "Race you to the car," Noah announced, dropping their hands and sprinting across the parking lot. "That kid has too much energy," Ariana laughed, but she was already running after him. Marcus followed, his heart full of gratitude for crashed doors and wrong turns, and the kind of courage it took to love again. Some walls, he'd learned, were meant to be broken down. Some risks were worth taking. Some love stories began with an accident and ended with choice. The choice to trust, to stay, to build something real and lasting and true.